Welcome to today's tutorial. Introductory project planning for teachers with Project Libra. Who am I? My name is 𝗂𝗪𝗁, and I'm Malaysian. I'm a mechanical engineer by training, and also in biomedical engineering from the University of New South Wales, from Sydney, Australia, and that was in the 1980s. So I spent quite a lot of years in Australia. I was working in R&D, and when I came back to Malaysia, I spent about 7 years in manufacturing. So it was in the car industry, safety seat belts and automotive braking systems. Around about 1994, I was invited to teach part-time in diploma classes for working students, and I went on to teach bachelor degrees and master degrees in 1996. I did an MBA from the University of Hull, UK, and I think about 2006, a Master of Arts. This is a research degree in project management. So today, after so many years, I'm still teaching, since 1994. Today, I'm teaching for 1 Australian university and 2 UK universities, and also do corporate training all over Southeast Asia and China as well. And since the pandemic started, it's all been 100% online. So most of my work, my career, my teaching, my training has been in project management. So today, I want to share some techniques that I believe are very useful for teachers. And I strongly believe that because I'm a teacher too. Now, teachers are involved in many projects during a school year or school term, usually with very limited resources at their disposal. So what we really want to do is create a realistic project schedule that will give you more confidence that you can actually achieve a successful outcome for your project. So we've got 3 learning objectives today. So first, introduce a basic project planning techniques with a very user-friendly freeware, Project Libra. I'll show you how you can download it and how you can make use of it. Number 2, learn to plan your projects quickly and ensure that you can fit them within the time frame that's given to you, perhaps, and the resource constraint that you have. And number 3, learn the basic project planning techniques using some of the basic features and commands of Project Libre. Now, we only have 1 hour or less than 1 hour, so obviously we can't cover all the project planning techniques and all the features of the software, but we'll just do some basic introductions just to get you started. So we hope that there'll be future tutorials, or you can just learn by yourself by playing around with the software. Now, projects are actually very relevant and important for teachers. Now, there was a question, right? What kind of projects do you usually run during the school term or year? Now, a lot of the answers are very similar to what I've listed here. Events are very common. So some teachers will say they are involved in organizing a science fair or a science project for the class. Maybe organize a sports day, Teachers' Day celebrations. Usually the students are involved, but the teachers will guide them. Or maybe a school trip, a physical trip, or these days, maybe a virtual trip. There could be educational projects. Maybe you are designing a new subject, new curriculum, testing a new teaching method, implementing a new policy from the school or from the Ministry of Education, introducing some new technology perhaps, or conducting research, right? You're carrying out education type research on behalf of your school or the university or the ministry. You could also do private projects, right? For example, you're moving to a new house or you're renovating your house. You're celebrating an anniversary. It could be a birthday, wedding anniversary, or maybe some of us are going back to school part-time to further our own education. You can treat that as a project as well. Or you're getting married, and that's a pretty important project that you cannot be late, obviously, and you want to do things well. Now, sometimes teachers are required to prepare a proposal, present it to someone, maybe the principal of the school, or maybe to somebody at the ministry, to get the project approved and get funding perhaps. Okay, so all the more reason it is good to actually learn how to plan projects. So what are the benefits of planning projects? So most projects have a time constraint. We are given deadlines, right? Now, some of the deadlines are fixed. It's going to be done by the end of the school term or end of the school year. Some could be very inflexible. Like, for example, I mentioned, if you're organizing a little party to celebrate a wedding anniversary, it doesn't make sense to make it late, right? Similarly, if you're organizing a project in your school, maybe to celebrate National Day, and again, you do not want it to be late. Projects also have resource constraints. Maybe you don't have enough people to help you, or you don't have enough money, or you don't have the knowledge or the expertise or the technology. If you do planning properly, it will give you more confidence that whatever you have planned and put in your schedule is actually quite realistic. So given the time constraints and resource constraints, you want to be confident that you are able to complete the project on time and achieve a good outcome. Yeah. So you want to feel that your project is very practical and very doable. So very practice oriented. It is something very realistic that we can actually get it done. Now, if you manage to do a successful project, it will give you even more confidence to do the next one, which in fact might be a bigger project or a more complex project. So these are the basic steps. Step number one, whatever your project is, you need to identify your project objectives. So in other words, what are you trying to achieve in this project? So objectives must be SMART, S-M-A-R-T. So this is an acronym, and you notice that the first letter of each bullet point is in red. So S stands for specific. So for example, in my project, I want to teach 25 students how to make PowerPoint slides, including the use of pictures. So notice it's very specific, right? We don't say some students or many students. I've got a specific number in mind. So when the project is finished, I can measure the result. So that's M, measurable. Did I manage to teach 25 students? Or was it 28 students or 23 students? Now, measurable, how do I know that my students have actually learned how to prepare PowerPoint slides? So maybe I will give them some assigned work. That means during this project, they will actually learn to use it, and they will have a tiny project or homework to do. And if they can do it, this is evidence that they have actually learned it, right? So it's measurable. A stands for agree. So in other words, we have to make sure the students know what exactly they are supposed to do. They're supposed to do the exercises that we do with them in class. Then they have a piece of homework that they have to do independently. Maybe they have to make a presentation and so on. And they must know, and they agree, yes, teacher, I know, I understand. What is it you want me to do? If this project is approved by my school principal, or maybe someone from the ministry, that is a form of agreement, right? I have proposed a project to them and they have approved it. That means they agree with my project, with what I want to do and what I want to achieve. The R stands for realistic. Now, don't do a project that's way too big, right? So do something that is at the appropriate level. So for example, do not teach too advanced. Maybe these students are beginner students. They've never done PowerPoint slides before. If you're teaching an advanced class, perhaps it might be different. Also bear in mind, this project may be a very short project. Maybe it's only over 2 weeks or in 1 month, or only limited to 1 school term. So whatever it is, make sure that you do not make the project too big. Yeah, do not take on more than you can handle. So we want it to be realistic. And of course, the T stands for time frame. So what are the deadlines? What are the dates I will do certain things? When will I finish the project? Yeah. So if the students have some homework to do, they are also told how much time they are given, when will they submit it, or when they need to consult you, and so on. So that's the first step. Now, the second step, based on our objectives, we now need to create what's called an activity list. So we know that we have to do certain activities in order to carry out the project. Now, the professionals call this a work breakdown structure. Now, the name actually is quite self-explanatory. I want to identify all the work to be done in this project. Those are the activities. I also want to break it down into smaller parts. So I want to break it down in smaller parts so that I can see the details. I can decide how long each activity will take, who will be involved, how much effort or how much materials or money is required. Yeah? Now, some of the activities may be done by people other than yourself. So try not to do everything yourself. So who else might be involved in the project? Maybe other teachers. maybe your colleagues in school, like office administrators, sometimes your students, and sometimes their parents as well, depending specifically on the nature of the project. I remember when I was in Australia, I have a cousin who was there. He was a school student, and they have a field trip. And the teacher said, if you can, bring an adult or two to help chaperone and help with the field trip. So my wife and I, we volunteered and we went with the whole class, and the teachers told us what we are supposed to do, how we can. Now, we are not the parents, but we were sort of like the student's guardian. Yes. So you might involve all kinds of people. And this is good because you need help. You can't do everything alone. Then 2.3, identify how much time you need and what resources you need for each activity. Again, is it materials? Is it equipment? Is it information? Is it money? Yes. And what are the constraints? For example, if you say we will need to borrow the school computer lab to do part of the project, you have to check with the lab, are the lab equipment, are they available on the days that you are planning to use them? Yeah, so we need to check. We cannot assume that everyone and everything will be available at the time that we want them. Now, if you have done this, we are now ready to create, hopefully, a realistic project schedule. We will use the Project Libre software, and you'll see how much easier and how much quicker it is to actually use the software. So we're going to go to this example now. Example of a school project using an actual calendar. Now, my school principal, sometimes we call this person the headmistress, gave me, a teacher, the task of designing and testing a new teaching method using a new software. Now, here are the conditions that she gave me. I must complete this project by submitting a final report to her by 1st December 2021. The project can only begin at the earliest in the month of November. Why? Because August, September, October, we are busy with the school year, we've got exams, etc., etc. So this project should be done somewhere in the month of November, but she would like it to be completed by 1st December. Now, I've seen the calendar, and I noted that 1st and 19th November are actually public holidays. And as far as this project is concerned, we are working from the office or from home, as the case may be. It will be a 5-day week, Monday to Friday, and the working hours are 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. So it's an 8-hour day. So these are the conditions or the constraints, if you like. Okay, so we will now begin creating the schedule with Project Libre. Now, this is called the WBS, yeah, an activity list, a very small school project. So I've labeled it A, B, C, D, E. So A, one of the main activities is I need to develop the new syllabus for this subject. It could be anything. It could be geography, mathematics, English language, science, or whatever it is. And I've allocated 3 days for it. B, I will have to learn how to use the software first, because if I don't do that, I will not be able to use it and certainly not be able to teach my students using the software. And I've allocated 5 days for that. C, prepare the slides or design activities that I'm going to use in the classes to teach my students. And then D, I will do a test with the students, and I'll allocate 2 days for that. So in other words, after I've developed the new syllabus using the software, I've learned how to use the new software, I've prepared some materials like slides and design some activities. I will now test it for 2 days with the help of my students in class, just to give it a trial run to see what works, what doesn't work, and I will then maybe improve it. And the last activity is E, write the report, which my headmistress wants, and I've given myself 3 days to complete the report. And the report will include things like recommendations and so on and so forth, right? So that's the activity list and my estimate how many days I need to get this done. Now, deciding how many days is quite important. Now, some people might say, do you really need 5 days to do this or 3 days to do that? Well, I may have other duties. I may not be spending full time on this activity. I may still have administrative duties back in the school, right? So it does not mean that I will actually spend 3 days times 24 hours doing A, for example. Yeah. In fact, I could be spending 4 hours per day for each of the 3 days. What am I doing the other half of the day? Well, I've got my regular duties. All right. So remember, it's supposed to be a realistic time frame. I cannot assume that my headmistress will relieve me of my teaching duties just to do this project. Now, the middle column is a very important column. It says here preceded by. What this means is it shows the relationship between the activities A, B, C, D, E. So in other words, you have to decide on the sequencing of all these activities. Now, if you look at A, develop new syllabus, it is preceded by nothing. There's a dash, right? In other words, I do not have to do anything before I start A. So therefore, I'm actually saying A will be my first activity in this project. Then you look at B. B, learn the new software, is preceded by A. In other words, I must complete A first before I can start doing B. That is a sequence I've decided on. C, same relationship, preceded by A. So since B and C have the same relationship, both are preceded by A, it means that B and C are actually running concurrently. They're running at the same time. So if I'm doing it by myself, I will spend maybe half the day learning the software, the other half the day, prepare some slides. But however, if I can get someone to help me, maybe another teacher, we might actually share the workload, right? Okay, but that is the basic relationship I've decided on. Then you have D, test the activities with the student, and it says here, I will do that preceded by C. So I will only test the activities after I finish preparing the slides and the design of the activities, which makes sense to me. Finally, write the final report, which is E. I will write the report only after B and D has been completed. That means I have finished learning the software, I've finished preparing everything, and then I can start writing the report and so on and so forth. Right? So again, how many activities, how many days, the sequencing, it is your decision. So we assume that we know what we are doing, we know the correct sequencing and so on. So let's say this is the project that we decided on and say, okay, how do I now create a schedule and see how I can fit it within all the constraints given to me? My headmistress wants me to finish everything by the 1st of December. So is it possible? I don't know. So let's see what it looks like. The next few slides, when you look at the recording later, or you can look at the slides, it tells you, okay, how do you download the software? So it's actually very simple. You Google it, Google the name Project Libre, download it. It's totally free. Sometimes the software will prompt you. Your computer does not have the Java software, which is this one. Okay, so the Java software is required to display. So if you don't have it, please download it. Yeah, okay, so this is actually quite user-friendly. And once you've downloaded it, it takes only about a couple of minutes, you'll be ready to use it. So let us demonstrate it, yeah? So let's say I am now ready to use my software. So I'm going to open it now. So let me scroll down to Project Libre. So when I open it, okay, just give it a second. It will look like this, okay? It gives you a tip of the day. So let me say I close it. I'm going to create a new project. Click. And I can write the project name of manager, the date to start. Yeah. And I'm going to say, I'm going to begin on, say, November 1st. Yeah. And I'm going to say, okay. Oh, must have a name. Sorry. So let's say a school project. Okay. So now, so notice it looks a bit like a spreadsheet, right? Now, many of you said, I'm using Excel. The good news is you just copy the information and put it here. Now, the first line is always reserved for title of project. So I'm just call it school project. And just to save time, I have 5 activities A, B, C, D, E, right? So instead of using time to type everything, I'm just going to write, well, A, B, C, D, E, right? Okay. And I know that A to E is a subset of the whole project, right? So I'm going to actually highlight the 5 activities, and then I'm going to click task and click a command called indent, so that you can see that now A, B, C, D has moved in 1 step. And I'm going to show you the WBS, the organization chart. This is what it looks like now. The school project is on top, and the school project consists of A, B, C, D, E at the bottom. Now, if you have further sub-activities, you can just repeat the same process, and you can create additional layers of the schedule. So I'm going to go back to the Gantt chart view. So how many days? Well, A is 6 days, B is 5 days, C is 5 days, D is 2 days, and E is 3 days, right? Now notice the calendar here is ready. The first day is on the 1st November, right? Okay, now I'm going to drag this across to expose it a little bit more. Now the predecessors are here. Now A is the starting activity. From memory, is the first activity, so we just leave it blank. Now B is preceded by A. So A is actually line 2, as you can see. So I'm going to key in line 2 and see what happens to the bar when I press arrow down. When I press arrow down, you notice the bar moves across, and there's an arrow now connecting A and B, right? Okay. Now what about C? C also comes after A. So same condition. So I'll press also line 2, arrow down, and there you go. D comes after C. Now C is line 4, so key in 4, arrow down. And then finally, E comes after B and D. So this is 3 separated by a comma, 3, 5, arrow down. So notice now, if I were to, in fact, zoom in so that we can see a little bit bigger, yeah. Okay, you can actually zoom in as much as you like, right? So this is similar to, in fact, it's exactly the same as the Gantt chart we drew earlier. Now, if I click network diagram, this was a flow diagram, right? So of course it's neater, the boxes are all the same sizes and so on and so forth. And the red one outline, we said earlier, was a critical path, right? A, C, D, and E. Yeah, okay. So this, of course, is a very simple example because we were time constraint. So I can only show you, say, 5 activities. Now, in your real project, you may have a lot more than 5 activities, right? You may have 50 activities, maybe 100 activities if you have a lot. But the principle is the same, right? You key it in here. You declare how many days it takes to actually do the project, right? You can decide what is the starting date, ending date. You have to instruct the software what is the connection between each activity. Now, those of you who are currently using Excel, copy the list of activities and paste it here. Then you have to decide how many days are you allocating to each activity, and you must fill in the predecessor column. So which line is connected to which line. Now, if you're unsure, there is a help button here. Right at the top right-hand corner, there's a blue circle with a question mark, right? If you click that, that will be your help. To access the help, you must be on the internet. Yeah, okay. But I also recommend you can actually go to YouTube and search for Project Libre tutorials, right? So you can watch it again and again. Yeah. Now, remember earlier we talked about public holidays. So I've got calendar here. So I'm going to click calendar, and I'm going to go to November. And notice that Saturdays and Sundays are gray. That means they are non-working time. But I'm going to declare 1st of November as a public holiday. So I click 1st November and I click non-working time. So notice 1st November is now gray. That means I just made it a non-working day. And the fact that the number 1 is red it shows that I made the change. Now 19 is also a public holiday, so I'm going to click non-working time again, right? Now once I've done this, now of course the software is free. It doesn't know which country you're in, so for the public holidays you have to key in yourself. Yeah, so I'm going to close the calendar, and you can see that it will automatically take care of all the public holidays. Yeah, so say for example 19 November, as you can see here, 19 November is great, it's a public holiday, so there's no work on that day, and it continues on to the following week. Yeah, now there are lots of other features. What if you say, how do I know who are the resources or who's in charge of activity A, B, C, D? So I can click here, resource, and click this resource box again, and I'll put people's names. So maybe I'll have someone called Olga, I'll have David, and so on and so forth, right? Maybe some of these are your students, your fellow teachers, right? So let's say I've got two names here. I'm going to go back to my task. And let's say for activity A, double click it, and this box will appear. If I click resources, and I will click this box to assign people, I can see that I've got Olga and David here, right? Now let's say I'm going to assign Olga only, alone, to do this. So I'll click her name, and I'll click assign. All right, I can close it now, and you see that Olga's name appear under resource names. And if I scroll across to show you the Gantt chart, her name also appears next to the bar. Yeah, okay. So this is how you can assign duties to people and so on and so forth. Now, what happens if there's a change of plan? What if my principal says, we are actually in a bit of a hurry. Do you mind trying to finish the project a little bit earlier? So can you finish, let's say, 2 days earlier? So I have to decide, okay, but I still want the same safety factor, right? Okay, so I have to decide which activity to speed up. So let's say I managed to convince a fellow teacher to help me with A, design the new syllabus, using the new software. Okay, so I've got another colleague who's also familiar with my subject, and we decided to reduce A by 2 days. It becomes 4 days now. Why am I able to do this? Because my colleague is helping me, right? So once I change the 6 to a 4 and go arrow down, I will be able to see, maybe I should zoom out, right? So we should be able to see the new schedule. Am I able to finish earlier? And in fact, it says yes, we will now finish on the 22nd of November. Yeah. And if you look at the network diagram, you can see the dates here as well. So what is the reason for doing this? The software allows us to do what's called what-if analysis. What if I change something here? What if I cut something there? Now you can see at the top line, it is now 16 days, right? 14 days, right? Earlier it was 16 days. So I've successfully reduced it by 2 days. So if it doesn't work, the software will also tell me. If it works, the software will also tell me. So this display is also very useful if you are asked to make a presentation to your school or to somebody in the ministry. If they ask you questions, you can actually show them this. And if they have a request to change something, you can actually show them what is the impact of that change. So maybe they say, what if we do more things? Then you'll say, oh, in that case, I want to add time to maybe certain activities, and the entire project will lengthen, and it may go past the date that we want. So we wouldn't really recommend it. And even though they don't know how to use this software, they can see the logic behind it because they can see the diagram, right? Okay, so this will help us convince the decision makers whether to accept a change or not to accept a change, or to accept your recommendations. Now, coming back to the PowerPoint slide. So this is just a very quick demo, as I mentioned, using a very simple example, right? So this is a quick summary of what we learned today. Number one, step one, you must identify very specific objectives. What are you trying to achieve? Secondly, you must identify all the activities you need to do to complete the project successfully. We call it a WBS, and key it into your software. You must also identify how long it will take and what resources you need, and whether there are any constraints like public holidays and completion dates. Use a software. Notice that the activities on the critical path, which the software automatically identifies for you in red, they are the ones that could potentially delay the project. So you protect those activities. Make sure those activities have enough resources. So if you use this, you can convince other people to accept your plan or to approve your plan. If you need more resources, you can use this to demonstrate, look, the only way I can speed it up is to get someone to help me, like just now. My colleague helps me, and I'm able to shorten it by the 2 days as required, right? Now, as a bonus, number 6, if you are teaching your students to run their own projects, the students are running their own science project or history project or whatever project, you could actually teach them how to use the software to plan their projects. So this could be another learning point for your students. Yeah, but like me, better learn the software first, make sure you're more familiar with it, and then you can start teaching your students. Now, of course, we have only scratched the beginning, right? There are lots of other features that you can use, but start from the beginning, and then as you get used to it, you will learn more and more. So thank you very much for your time and participation, and I hope to see you again.